Today's podcast is sponsored by AMAC, the only conservative alternative to that other group. Join today at amac.us/Carter. In today's special episode, I have Alfredo Ortiz. He is president and CEO of Job Creators Network. Love this organization. And I've done many things with them, many different little projects or discussions with them in the past. We will be talking about his brand new book, which is brilliant. Listen to this title: The Real Race Revolutionaries, How Minority Entrepreneurship Can Overcome America's Racial and Economic Divides. I totally believe that. I absolutely believe that with opportunity comes freedom, and freedom, opportunity, right? Each one belongs to each other. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about small businesses, what you can do to build your own small business, what that means also to minority small business owners, and how the Democrats are totally screwing it up for all of us. I'll also cover the latest on the discovery of, listen to this, 2 batches of classified documents on Joe Biden. He failed to return them after his term as vice president. By the way, a vice president does not have the authority to declassify. So even if he was able to see it as vice president, even if someone gave him that authority, even if he saw that, he does not have the authority to declassify. So maybe somebody should be asking Obama whether he declassified those for Joe Biden, or if Joe Biden just walked out with the briefcase full of classified documents and took them home. Because he, obviously there's a double standard here because they raided Mar-a-Lago. And we're going to be talking about that in a little bit. Hey, everyone, please follow and subscribe. Get all the links at saraacarter.com. That is saraacarter.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list so that you don't get shadow banned. Folks, I have a new sponsor, a great sponsor, and one that I absolutely think is important for all of us, right? It's Allegiance Gold. Gold and silver actually allow you to protect what you've worked so hard for. And after what we saw in Canada, after what we've seen in the United States with these woke corporations and woke banks and governments that want to interfere in our financial future by holding us hostage, because if we don't believe the way they believe, they think they can just come in and throw us out, right? We saw that. Well, they can't do that with gold. They cannot do that with silver, right? You can get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. My friends at Allegiance Gold can help you protect your IRA or your 401k with physical gold and silver, or have it delivered securely. Listen to this, right to your door. They will educate you on the benefits of physical gold because they care and they want to build that long-term relationship. Remember this, get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them Sara sent you. Sara sent you. So don't wait. Call or click today. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, SARA, or go to protectwithsara.com. We can't control the Biden administration, but we can prepare. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, SARA, or protectwithsara.com. Folks, more classified documents, not just at the university. More classified documents have been found in President Biden's Delaware garage. Can you believe the hypocrisy of these people? Can you believe what has happened? They literally raided President Trump, a president of the United States who did have the authority, by the way, to declassify. And there may have been issues with the fact, but it isn't criminal. It is not criminal, in my opinion, at all, President Trump. But when President Biden was the vice president of these United States, he somehow left the administration when it ended with classified documents. And President Biden, who was then Vice President Biden, did not have the authority the authority to declassify? Only President Obama. I want you to take a listen to what Biden had to say. The hypocrisy of it all is astounding. Listen to this.
Mr. President,
Okay.
classified material next to your Corvette. What were you thinking?
Love Steve
Let
Ducey.
me, I'm going to get a chance to speak on all this, God willing, soon. But as I said earlier this week, people, and by the way, my Corvette's in a locked garage. Okay, so it's not like you're sitting out in the street.
So the
But anyway,
was in a locked garage.
yes, as well as my Corvette. But as I said earlier this week, people know I take classified documents and classified material seriously. I also said we're cooperating fully and completely with the Justice Department's review. As part of that process, my lawyer has reviewed other places where documents in from my time as vice president were stored, and they finished the review last night. They discovered a small number of documents of classified markings in storage areas and file cabinets in my home and my personal library.
What? What was he saying? I mean, this is crazy. They want to hold the Republicans accountable for, and we'll just say President Trump accountable for classified documents. But President Biden literally left the Obama administration with classified documents that he just left in his Delaware garage. Let me explain something to you about how dangerous this is. And my good friend Buck Sexton actually brought up a really good point that I'm going to reiterate because I brought up this point before. When my husband had a security clearance, a very high level of security clearance, top secret security clearance. My friend Buck Sexton, he has a great podcast, radio show with Clay Travis. But he said when he was at the CIA, and it's true, if he would have even thought of going home with a document, they probably would have read his mind, or anything classified. If he would have taken that outside of a building or outside of an area, a secure area, and just take it home or send it in an email or put it in a text message or whatever, he would have been arrested. We've seen this before. We've seen people, right? Chelsea Manning, former Bradley Manning, leaking documentation, leaking classified information. There is a difference, however, between being the president of the United States and having the authority to declassify and then being a vice president and walking out with documents. What makes this even worse was the relationship that the Bidens had with adversaries like China, companies, corporations. Hunter Biden sitting on a board like Burisma with the Ukrainians, where he was getting paid so much money. Every month he was taking money, and the millions that came from China into his account. And if just look at what Peter Schweitzer has done to research on the Bidens, just look at that research and the money that was going back and forth and the compromise, which is what the Russians like to say. When they compromise someone, when someone becomes compromised, meaning they can blackmail you. We have a president right now in office who literally is having a hard time putting sentences together. And I think people are taking extreme advantage of him. We could see in the statement, he's trying to read from a paper. He sometimes has some clarity and then he loses it again. His explanations make no sense at all. You do not throw boxes of paper right next to your like Corvette and then just, the National Archives, no big deal. By the way, the National Archives need to be investigated and all of their, officials there that have had this double standard, right? Now Merrick Garland is calling for a special counsel. Will anything get done? I don't know. Because I have seen our nation like I've never imagined I would have seen it before. I feel like when President Trump, this is the great blessing of the Trump presidency, really, truly is. I know so many of you out there, everybody's so, concerned about the direction of our nation, where we're going, how we're going to handle this. Are we going to remain a republic? What is going on with our children? There are so many questions of, and in the end, I think a lot of failures on our part as Americans to hold our government accountable. But the blessing was that with President Trump's presidency, there was so much exposure. Everything was exposed. President Trump wasn't beholden to, he wasn't part of the establishment. He wasn't part of whatever political whims we see on Capitol Hill. He wasn't threatened by those. He had other issues, but it wasn't that. And his policies, deregulation, border security, telling people to basically screw off. Now, I'm going to move the embassy to Jerusalem. I don't care what you have to say. I made that promise. I'm going to do it. People irate about everything that he did. The DOD, why do we have a war in Afghanistan? Give me an answer. They were so mad at him. What, you mean I can't have the revolving door anymore? It's not going to exist under you, President Trump. Other people in his national security, remember Lieutenant General Michael Flynn was going to hit hard. He was going to investigate all the operations that were happening within the CIA, and other intelligence agencies, find out where our money was going, right? And now we see the $1.7 trillion omnibus package. The reason I bring this up, folks, is because the swamp is prolific. It's full of hypocrisy. A lot of people in Washington, D.C., they are there to protect eventually their own power and their own money and their own lives and their own family. And they do not give a shit about any of us. They really don't. This is the hypocrisy. Look at the Biden administration. We literally have unelected officials running our nation. That is what we have. We have people in that White House who we did not vote for, who were appointed to those positions, running our nation and being the last say in everything that happens. And we have seen the weaponization of our Department of Justice. Merrick Garland had no other choice. If you're going to call a special counsel to investigate a president of these United States, the FBI raided a president's home. They went through his wife's closet. They went through his son's closet. They basically infiltrated Mar-a-Lago. And believe me, prior to that raid, God only knows what they did. They probably wiretapped the whole place. They were probably asking people all kinds of questions, investigating, trying to find something. Let's take Trump down. He can't run for office again. He's a threat to our democracy. Really? He's a threat to our democracy? Take a look in the mirror, Biden administration. Take a look in the mirror, FBI. Take a look in the mirror, Merrick Garland. You're the threats to the democracy and the republic. Your hypocrisy. The way you just lie to the American people. The way you just callously use these agencies that we entrust with our future and our children. The way you use them and weaponize them against our own nation instead of our adversaries and enemies. And now we have a president in office who literally took money from our adversaries like China, who pocketed money from Russia. Come on, we know it happened. We've seen the facts. The facts are there. We've seen it in the laptop from hell, the great book that Miranda Devine wrote. She's amazing, by the way. New York Post investigative journalist. She is great. That's the reality. And it is up to us, the American people, to do the right thing, to do the right thing, to put the right people in office and to stop this. You know what I want? I want a special counsel investigating every agency in Washington, D.C., every single one on Capitol Hill. That's what I want. I want to know why the Biden administration, not President Biden, because I just don't think he's making any decisions, has left our border wide open so that our children can be poisoned and that people are pouring in, don't even know where the hell they are at, what they're going to do because they're sleeping on the streets in El Paso. And why people are crossing the river like I just saw this weekend with their children and their babies in their arms and taking all those risks because they think Biden opened the border. We are living in really, really dangerously strange times. And I'm going to tell you this. Every single adversary of the United States has been monitoring Joe Biden and his family for years. They know they are weak. They know they are compromised. Why? Because these adversaries compromise them. And whenever a classified document ended up in the home of Joe Biden, I guarantee you there was a spy waiting to take photographs of it. I guarantee you there was somebody infiltrating that particular family at any particular time. Do you really believe that all of the prostitutes and people that Hunter Biden slept with were just prostitutes? Or were just people that he met at bars? No. Our White House is compromised. Will Merrick Garland get to the truth? I don't know. Is the Department of Justice salvageable? Maybe. I don't know. But if we just, pretend like none of this happened, if you and I pretend or we're too busy to hold our lawmakers accountable and say, you know what, write our congressman, you need to investigate this. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. Everybody should be on the same page. Even if you're an independent, everybody on the same page. We are not going to save our nation by hiding the truth. It's like a family that tries to hide a drug addict or a drug problem or an abuse problem. It never goes away. The only way to save the person or the nation that is carrying that problem or has that infection or whatever is to tell the truth, is to hold them accountable, is to not be afraid. And before I move on, because we've got other things we're going to talk to. We're going to talk to Alfredo Ortiz in a minute. Before I move on, one of the things that I want to share with you is a story that someone told me once, an intelligence officer that was talking about something that happened at the State Department. They had told me once that there was somebody at the State Department, this was years ago, maybe more than a decade ago, that was caught overseas sleeping with children. And that instead of prosecuting whoever this person was, the State Department decided to bury it because they didn't want to harm the reputation of the State Department. So they buried the person pretty much like in the bottom basement, didn't give them according to the source I spoke with, whoever this person was being monitored by adversaries. So it also became a huge problem because the U.S., obviously, this person had access to classified information, was working overseas, and was obviously being spied on. But what the answer to what they did was like, let's just bury this. Who cares about the victim? Who cares about the fact that we have this creep pervert, working inside our State Department. We're just not going to let it out because we don't want the world to know that we have a bad apple amongst us. Well, what happens when you put a bad apple with a bunch of other apples? It starts to rot the whole batch, right? All of the apples start to get rotten. Guys, that's what's happening in our country right now. That's what's happening in our country. We are not perfect. We are better than any other nation on earth. But we have so many rotten apples in Washington, D.C., and they're infecting everything. The only way to save our nation is to be honest about it. And for those people within these agencies that have decency and who care about our country and believe in our Constitution, they have to stop. You, if you're listening, have to stop worrying so much about yourself. And you have to be brave, and you have to stand up, and you have to demand justice. And you have to demand investigations, and you have to expose people. And then guess what? Then you have to file charges and mean it. And take it to judges who are going to be objective. The American people and our nation actually deserve that. And I'll be back in a few minutes with Alfredo Ortiz. Folks, you know about MyPillow. I love the company. I love Mike Lindell. I love everything about him. And now I want you to shop the New Year Specials event for Giza Dream Sheets. Look, you can get the Giza Dream Sheets as low as $29.98. You're not going to be able to get that anywhere. Shop the New Year's specials at mypillow.com and use promo code Carter. Remember, I've got the dog beds, I've got the My Pillows, I've got the sheets, I've got the blankets, I've got the My Slippers, and I'm still ordering more. I love it, love it, love it so much. You can get huge discounts on all My Pillow bedding products, including blankets, pillows, and comforters, and get the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98 while quantities last. Stock up now at mypillow.com and use the promo code Carter for the New Year's specials. mypillow.com, promo code Carter. I'm so excited. I have my friend Alfredo Ortiz here with us today. He's the president and CEO of one of the greatest organizations, Job Creators Network, truly an organization that supports American small business owners and small businesses. And now you're the author of The Real Race Revolutionaries, How Minority Entrepreneurship Can Overcome America's Racial and Economic Divides. There has never been a truer statement than that, Alfredo. Thank you so much for being on the Sarah Carter Show.
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. It's a complete honor. And I have to tell you, I am really excited about this book. And I've had some great conversation with folks for the past few days as we've been doing the little tour. And I spoke with Newt Gingrich, and he actually gave me a huge compliment. He said, it might be one of the most consequential books of the last few years because of the topic that it hits on.
I do too. I believe that as well. And, I think that when you and I have discussed this in the past, and we've actually done small discussions and seminars with Job Creators Network where we would talk about these issues. And we did one recently. Let's talk a little bit about that, because America really is, I don't like to use the cliche word, the melting pot, but we're all immigrants. We're from so many places in the world, and we bring those values and those cultural differences into this country, and we blend it in. And we have so many incredible business owners and people from all over the world that are sharing those ideas with us right here in America. Talk about how that kind of tapestry in American small business makes a difference, especially when you're talking about small business owners.
Yeah, well, Sarah, it makes a huge difference. I mean, the one thing, I've been doing this job for 10 years now at Job Creators Network. And, I've crisscrossed the country. As you know, we've had our 2 buses. We've traveled, probably about 120,000 miles over those past 10 years, mostly in the past 5 years. And, we've heard a lot from small business owners, and a lot of these small business owners, I would say the clear majority, are minority small business owners, whether they're Black, Asian, Hispanic, from India, from Korea. I mean, all over the world, they've come here because they know that there is the opportunity for them to do good. And, and the one thing they understand clearly is that not this notion that the Democrats keep trying to push, which is equality, right? Equality of outcome.
Right.
All they want to do is equal opportunity to try to succeed. That's all they want, a level playing field so that they can actually, invest in their ideas and their business and themselves. And, quite frankly, invest in hiring other people, a lot of other people. In fact, 30 million small business owners overall hire over 60 million people in this country. I mean, so you add that up, that's over 90 million people that are dependent on success or failure of small business. And quite frankly, after the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which, I worked hard to help get that passed on the small business side.
I know.
The organization. I mean, we crisscrossed the country on that one as well, putting the stories of small business owners. But that had phenomenal impact in terms of, minority businesses. I mean, Asians were up as Hispanics, Blacks, all their median incomes were up 7, 8, 9%. And it was like something that they've never seen before. Hispanics in particular had the best years, quite frankly, that they had ever experienced in terms of home ownership, median incomes, wages. I mean, it was just unbelievable. But all that was due not because of more governments, which is what the left loves to do. It was less government. It was less taxes, lower regulation. That is what made them succeed, not more government. And that's what this book is trying to really push out there and the narrative, because we don't need more governments to cure the racial divide. And Sarah, I am not, as one congresswoman called me, ignorant. I had the testimony that I did last spring before the House Ways and Means Committee. That's
what I was just going to ask you, because that's on the back cover, right?
Yeah.
You explain, that your book grew out of that testimony, and that was spring 2022. Yeah,
it was spring of 2022, and it just gnawed on me because, quite frankly, I think that was an ignorant comment on her part, to do that. I mean, my background, Sarah. I mean, my mom was a housekeeper. My dad was a tailor. We grew up in Chula Vista, California. I mean, I grew up going through trash cans with my mom on trash day, and we'd fill up her car, and we'd, take the aluminum cans and newspapers. We'd run that over to the YMCA, and that was our grocery money for the week. And then, bake sales, you name it. I mean, garage sales, which my mom had the best garage sales.
I remember doing that myself with my mom, you know what I mean? Like we would take all those cans and everything, and we would just go down and we'd be so excited to get that extra money.
Oh, yeah.
Because I went through that same issue with my mother after my dad died, and she was working as a house cleaner at an elderly facility. Yeah. She ended up in a factory, and she was Cuban. She was I was a firstborn on her side of the family in America,
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So I get it. I mean, this is about every single one of us and having those opportunities. I wanted to talk to you about this because this is what I think is so...
If I could,
Go ahead.
So the testimony, sorry, because I didn't quite finish the thought there. So sorry, I apologize for that. But at the testimony, the left was not very pleased with what I was saying, right? Because I was really pushing back on their narrative that what we need really is truly more government. And I was like, no, you don't. You need less government intervention. Just, get out of the way, lower taxes, lower regulation. And we've seen what happened, right? It's not a hypothesis anymore. We have proven data to show that. And that's why, their response to me was less than favorable. And so hence the book.
Yes, but the proof is in the pudding, right? Like that's what people always say, right?
Yeah,
and we know the difference when government becomes so involved in our everyday lives and taxes the heck out of our businesses and creates these enormous regulatory problems for our companies and for small business, and attempts to raise the minimum wage. And now we're seeing, the effects of this with the Biden administration, even in our own economy and that contraction. And they're struggling now. How do we handle inflation? How do we control this? And it's small business owners that pay the price, and the American people, because in the end, they got to let people go. They lose their businesses. We saw what happened under Biden administration with COVID. And, we've seen the effects of COVID. I'm not saying that Biden created COVID, but how the Democrats reacted to the COVID pandemic was was detrimental in a way to our economy and to a lot of small businesses.
Yeah, one of the most exciting projects actually we had last year too was the Great Opportunity Project. We launched that, which was really, basically showing the direct contrast between the Democrat-run states and the Republican-run states during COVID. And the phenomenal results, quite frankly, that the Republican governor states had in terms of balancing the health of their economies with the health of their people. I mean, quite frankly, the unemployment rate right now, if you actually stripped out the Republican states, that unemployment number would actually be double. So,
wow.
The only reason Biden can actually celebrate such a low number is thanks to the Republican governors. And
Florida, Texas.
I mean, all of them, Florida, Texas, Georgia, which is where I'm here.
Georgia.
I saw Brian Kemp open up this state. Quite frankly, it was the first one really in small businesses. On our videos, we captured some of these small business owners that had wonderful stories. All of them immigrants, by the way. About how they were able to survive because Governor Kemp kept that balance appropriate. And so,
right.
The point is that with small businesses in this country, that is the biggest opportunity for minorities, small businesses, entrepreneurship, right? That is how they enter, they get a piece of the American pie. Think about franchises. Franchises and the whole franchise model is one of the number one ways that entrepreneurs, minorities actually get a piece of that business, right? Whether it's, the Martinizing,
how has that changed?
Donuts, et cetera. Well, the problem is right now.
How has that changed under a Democrat?
Well, right now
control?
They're really trying to change that. It's called joint employer, which would be horrific. Oh. I'm telling you this right now, Sarah. I mean, we have to spread the word on this because they're trying to slip this one in like they always do. Joint employer, I'm not going to get too wonky at you. But basically what that means is that no longer as a franchisee are you basically the owner and control your own destiny of your own company, right? If that franchisee, for example, does something wrong, completely as a franchisor, you didn't know what happened, they actually will have the right to come to you and actually take legal action on you, the franchisor. Well, think about that. Which franchisor then is actually going to want to take a risk on anybody, right? That they don't know or this
wow.
that model. So it's going to really hurt a lot of minorities and a lot of entrepreneurs out there that say, you know what? I've been working for all these years. I want a piece of that action. I believe in myself. I think they can do this. I'm telling you, it's going to be so much harder. We fought this a few years ago when with Obama. Well, they've brought this idea back and they're trying to push this joint employer. So spread the word, Sarah, because that is the last thing that we need for our minority entrepreneurs.
Well, I don't want to leave this subject just yet because I think that's really important because they could bring legal action against a franchisor, as like you call it, somebody who's franchising off of the main company. They could probably do it for almost anything, I would imagine, because you can indict a ham sandwich. You could bring legal action against anybody. So if somebody wants to take it back, take back that franchise or take control of that franchise or something, that person could potentially lose the business they invested everything in.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right.
Am I right?
Yeah, completely. And so, and not only does it hurt the franchisor, but the franchisee and future franchisees, I might say, you know what? I'd love to open up that Wetzel Pretzel over there. It's not a bad investment. It's not something that, is out of the question. Like McDonald's are pretty expensive, but hey, you know what? A $50,000 investment and I can buy into this idea and I can open my own spot. That's not going to be really possible. I'm going to tell you, there's a joint employer. If I was a franchisor, I'd be really, really careful about who I would start licensing my stuff to, and probably only target larger, experienced franchisees. And so that's really going to carve out a lot of these people who are going to try to make that shift into their own, their own business and really follow their entrepreneur spirit.
Right. So it kind of cuts out the small business owner. Again, it's like it works against what we would see as in a capitalist system like we have, in a republic like we have, where people can make a better life for themselves, and I always think about that, Alfredo, as we come up to this election, coming up to this new presidential election. And I talk to people when I travel around the country, and it breaks my heart when I talk to people who've said, I lost my business. Nobody cared about us, the small business owner. And when, COVID hit, we couldn't keep our doors open. The hypocrisy from the side of the Democrats was overwhelming. Or when you see this overregulation or the shutdown of a pipeline, and also the fact that so many people are still lacking workers in our country.
Oh, yeah.
That there's people, you can't even go to a restaurant. Can you talk a little bit about that? Sometimes, we're lucky we're in Texas, but in some places like in Montana and other places around the country, I have literally seen and talked to people, or I've been there myself, they have to shut down early because they don't have enough people to serve. Yep. What is going on here with that?
Well, Sarah, unfortunately during COVID, right, people were paid not to work. And that continued after COVID. And look, the Democrats love doing that because that's the way they exert power. That's, it's straight out of the socialist playbook, right? Keep paying people money, make them dependent on the federal government, and then you have ultimate control. And by the way, that is exactly why they don't like the small business model in this country, because they can't control them, they can't corral them, right? They can't tell them what to do. So it irks them to no end. So guess what? We'll just regulate them to death. We'll just tax them to death. Think about the 87,000 IRS agents that, thank goodness, this new Republican House actually defunded.
Oh, thank God, Kevin McCarthy. That was number one on his list, for the speaker.
Who do you think they would have gone after? These 87,000 agents? Microsoft? Chevron, Exxon, Coca-Cola, they have like floors of accountants and lawyers. They're not going to go after them. They're going to go after you who have a small business, me who has a small business.
Me.
The guy down the street that has a small business, the Jay's Pizza. Because guess what? They don't have the wherewithal to fight an audit. So,
we saw the abuse in the IRS anyways. People may not remember, and I know the listeners out there that listen to the show, we've talked about it in the past, but look, we saw what happened with conservative groups like the Tea Party and others that were targeted by the IRS. Yeah. This is a very dangerous time and a very difficult time unless we get back to what made our nation so great. And that's innovation.
Yeah, it's interesting. Sarah, we talk a lot about the weaponization of the FBI, but I actually think the weaponization of the IRS has actually been a bigger abuse, and it's been for decades.
I agree.
And quite frankly, the right's done its fair share as well. They're not exactly exempt from this as well, but primarily the left has done that. But the weaponization of the IRS is one of the most awful things ever, because you really are fighting a machine that you'll never really win at. And so a lot of these small business guys, as soon as they get that audit, they're like, okay, what's the amount? Let me write the check. Right. But it's horrible. And these compliance costs, several years ago when we were doing the Tax and Jobs Act tour, I talked to a small Hispanic grocery owner out in the suburbs of Chicago. It was a one-store shop, but he told me that his annual compliance costs, people he has to hire to just be, up to speed with everything and keeping up with all the stuff from the governments, both local and federal and state, was $100,000 a year. Think about that.
Oh my gosh!
What the margin is for a grocery store? 1%. So out of every dollar, they gave to keep 1 penny. Now they're having to spend $100,000 just to keep up with compliance costs, or they'll feel that it will somehow be audited. So it's ridiculous. That's what I'm saying. We got to lower regulations. We got to lower taxes. Let people do what they do best, which is innovate, like you said, right? Hire people, right? Get people excited about their business. Find a niche. In my book, I talk about a couple examples of that. People that are minorities that found that niche and they pursued their dream and they're very successful. Well,
let me ask you this because I want to expand on that in a minute, but I think people have a misconception, and we've talked about that in the Hispanic community, right? Or in the African American or Black communities, Asian communities. There's this misconception that certain groups, or certain minorities are all in for the Democratic model, or for the Democrats. And they're not, and we're not.
Right.
We're about working hard. I see so many people here in the state of Texas, so many legal immigrants that have come here, that have built amazing businesses, have great relationships with our neighbors to the south, where there's so much, we have so many goods and services going back and forth across the ports of entry, and people just want to be able to give their children a better opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways the Republicans are waking up now, but the Republicans failed in reaching a lot of the minority groups for a long time. And I think it's different now. I think they're starting to say, well, wait a minute, we've got to really pay attention to everyone. This is a melting pot.
Well, it's interesting. I think, to an extent, the Republicans probably haven't necessarily, in my opinion, humble opinion on this one, they not necessarily have won those minorities over. I think what happened is the Democrats are losing them, right? Because it's
that's smart.
The truth is really coming out here, right? It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. The curtain has been pulled, right? And they actually are seeing this party for what it really is, right? That it actually doesn't work in favor. Think about education, for example. Think about the horrible numbers now that we're seeing about what it means for the loss over a lifetime of these kids because of what happened during COVID. Right? I mean,
and it's abysmal. We're like ranking so low. Those test scores came out, and I wish I had them right in front of me right now, and I don't. But the United States is really behind the curveball when it comes to mathematics and science. Right?
We were number one in the world.
Number one in the world, and now our children are just struggling to do basic math.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. So I think folks are seeing that. Hispanics in particular, I think, are seeing that. And, Hispanics did so well under the Trump administration across the board that I think now they're seeing kind of all that going away. So they are really seeing the difference, I think. And that's why they really are moving towards, or I should say away from the Democrat Party and towards the Republican Party, because like you said, the proof is in the pudding. And they saw the benefits of this environment that's not a socialist environment. And by the way, think about that.
Right.
A lot of these folks that we're talking about, the legal immigrants that are coming from countries like Nicaragua, Cuba, and others.
Use your Spanish.
Socialist.
Alfredo, right? Nicaragua.
Yeah, they're leaving. Yeah. I don't think you. They're leaving these socialist countries. You just had to point that out, didn't you? I've been around the gringos here in Atlanta too long.
That's right. But yeah, it's okay. I forgive you.
But they're leaving these socialist countries, right? They're fleeing that because they hated it there, right? And they might have had a small business that they started up there, and they just got taken over by the government. So they're coming here, right? They don't want to see that here. And I have to tell you, when we were doing years ago, I think you met Heidi Ganal. She started Camp Bow Wow.
I love Heidi.
Yeah,
Ganal.
She ran for governor out in Colorado. She's absolutely amazing. She was a board member of ours. But she was really helping us fight years ago, the National Labor Relations Board. And again, back then, the whole joint employer stuff. But she pointed out, this issue that if it weren't, for the fact that, we were actually kind of fighting this joint employer thing, it really would be taken away overall from the Hispanics, right? And for all.
How close are we to losing on that? I mean, now that we have the GOP House, but I mean, how close are we to like seeing that come to fruition, or do you think we're going to be able to fight it?
I'm telling you, the way these guys are shoving these things into these 6,000 page bills, that's
crazy
how
bills. Yes,
that's how they're getting this done, and so that is why we need the time to at least read the document that they're voting on, right? Because these things are being snuck in there, and these are really detrimental to our economy. So like I said, when we fought that National Labor Relations Board, that was a critical fight because we were afraid that all this opportunity for small businesses would go away.
Well, let me ask you this before I let you go, because I know I'm keeping you forever, and I know you're going to go see the governor soon. But I wonder how woke policies, things like racial quotas, reparations, language changes. Like, I'm so excited that Governor Sarah Huckabee, removed that Latinx, from all of the.
What is
so
that
crazy.
Latinx, by the way?
I don't even understand.
Right?
Nobody even knows what that is. Latinx.
Not a Latinx. I'm a Latino.
Yeah,
you're
Latinx.
Right.
What is a Latinx? It's like we're becoming something different. We're evolving. We're transing. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, you're a birthing unit, I guess. So.
Exactly. I'm a birthing unit. No. Yes. To the left. That's exactly what I am. I'm a birthing unit. Happy birthing unit. Yeah, exactly. My child has no gender. My birthing unit cannot decide.
Now, right?
Right. So this is what's happening to our businesses too, right? I mean, our businesses are being overwhelmed, and I want private business to be able to make their own decisions, right? For themselves. I don't want to see government too entrenched in this, but all of these woke policies and these crazy ideas that are being adopted by companies. I mean, do you think that that's affecting like the small business owners, or is that something that
it
is mostly endemic to like large corporations?
Large corporations is probably worse, right? But it is impacting because it's all over the board, right? It's the schools. It's now in the culture, right? And so it's impacting small businesses because, look, they're just now afraid to operate. A lot of these small businesses that are members, they actually really are concerned about speaking out. I have to give a lot of props to those business advocates that we have that are out there, whether it's on radio or TV or helping us write opinion editorials, because they're putting their businesses on the line, right? But they see the greater good of doing that and really challenging this because this country, from that perspective, is really falling apart, and we need to save it, right? And that is actually what we do, really. I think best at Job Creators Network is we do take on a lot of battles that people don't take on. I know that, for example, this loan bailout, the $420 billion loan bailout.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, Biden was proposing, and he tried to get it through. Well, we took him to court, and now we're going to be at the Supreme Court at the end of February.
All those students that want that free money.
Yeah, and they're like,
but nothing is free.
I mean, and trust me, we got some nasty emails on this one, but it is. You said it best. Nothing is really free. And by the way,
nothing is really free.
When does it stop? And the thing is, we took a step back, and we actually say this: we're in violent agreement with Biden. Violent agreement with Biden that we have to fix this loan issue, but not on the shoulders of taxpayers. Sarah, there's $700 billion of endowment dollars in these colleges and universities, right?
That aren't even touched. The universities control those endowments, and they're getting endowments, by the way, just throwing it in there. And I'm not going to go off the subject, but from all over the world. And we know that. They're investigating Biden and his, And by the way, these endowments are huge.
These campuses are like resort style campuses. They pay some of these football coaches $10 million a year. Presidents $8 million a year. Faculty, have tenure, which, costs them an arm and a leg. I mean, quite frankly, this started with Obama, where they just kind of let it all go, right? Because all of a sudden the federal government took over the loans. So they're like, hey, you know what? I know this is a 4-year university, but why Russia? Do it in 5. Okay, well, guess what? Simple math, 4 years to 5 years, that's a 20% increase in that student in terms of revenues all of a sudden, right?
Right.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
But also, I think what's so important about all of this, Alfredo, and the lesson what I've taken from your book, which I think is brilliant and important, and that's the light bulb moment that I had when I was going to say something, and I let you finish explaining what you were saying. But the light bulb moment is that real equality between people in a society happens when everybody has those opportunities, when everybody has the same opportunity to work, to build a business, to take care of their families, to live where they want to live, to do what they need to do, to be that provider for their families and build strong families and strong communities.
Amen,
and you
sister.
can only,
you preach it.
Right? I mean, that's really it.
That's
and
right.
that's what your book is saying. It's like, look, somebody may not like the color of your skin, but who cares? Who cares about that person? Because you know what? You live in America and you can build a business and you can give your family what they need, and you should have that same equal opportunity to do that as everyone else did. And nobody wants a handout. Have you ever met, this is really the truth. I'm down at the border in El Paso, and I'm talking to all the Venezuelans who have come to the church outside of Sacred Heart Church. Every single one of the people that I spoke with, every American that I speak with, other than, of course, drug addicts on the streets or people who can't physically do what they need to do to work because of a mental capacity, they have a mental illness or something. Everybody says, all I want is an opportunity to feed my family and to work. All I want is that. They never said to me, I want a check.
Right. Well,
the check comes and then people end up sitting back and doing nothing. But that doesn't make a good human, and that doesn't make people happy.
No, absolutely. And remember what the Constitution and what this country promises, right? And it's always promised equal opportunity. Never has it been about equal outcome. Right. I mean, it's never been about that.
Equal opportunity. Well, look at what happened in Venezuela. Why do you think so many people are sitting around that church in El Paso from Venezuela or Cuba? Because socialist, communist nations that tried to promise equal outcomes fail and implode on themselves, and they do not work.
And I've always loved what Margaret Thatcher's quote, right? Socialism is great until you run out of other people's money. I always love that.
She's so brilliant. I love those quotes.
Yeah,
I'm always
really
like,
does.
wow.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, Margaret Thatcher is like, everybody should read all of her quotes, really, because Margaret Thatcher, she's brilliant.
Yeah, no, they're really great.
Right.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
And she's right. Okay, before I let you go, if someone has an idea for a small business, where can they go to find resources on how they can get started? And I guess the best ways to protect themselves and their business.
Yeah,
where do we go?
I mean, there's a lot of different ways. I know that there's an online retired executives called SCORE. That's a great resource, actually. The SBA online has some great resources too, but good luck trying to get a loan from the SBA, because I tried to do that and never was. I had to resort to credit cards and pulling out a mortgage, line of credit, and all that. Right? We all did that, right?
We all, and
so the SBA loan is probably not the best, but in terms of ideas, SCORE is a really good one. I always encourage people, if you have an idea in a particular industry, like you want to open up a restaurant, go talk to a lot of restaurants, right? And just go in and sit down, you talk to the owner, and that's how you
do the legwork. Yeah,
you do the legwork, right? Because it's not easy. Remember, I think that the statistic is over 90% of actually new businesses actually fail. But the idea is you fail, you learn, and you move forward, right? And that's the beauty of this country. And so I really encourage, your listeners to read this book. It's a nice, easy read. But I'm
so excited. Where can people find your book? Where can they find the book and support Job Creators Network?
Well, where they can probably find the Real Race Revolutionaries, and it is available right now on Amazon, both on your Kindle and paperback. And, we hope people do it. And after that, we encourage people to visit our website, jobcreatorsnetwork.com, and learn more about the fight that we love taking on, because a lot of times, like I said, we take on certain fights that other people aren't willing to do.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much, Alfredo, for being on the show. And I hope you have an awesome, wonderful day in Georgia with the swearing in and the ball. Governor Kemp, congratulations to you too.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I look forward to bringing Alfredo Ortiz back on the show. I'm going to ask him next time some advice on what do I need to do to make my business prosperous? How do we grow? What do we need to do? And I'm excited because he's going to have his own podcast soon on the Salem Network, and he wants to have me on as a guest. So looking forward to doing that, Alfredo. Before we go, I want to talk to you about a story that just blew my mind. Blew my mind, right? This is my opinion, okay? This is my opinion side of things. Obese children should take weight loss drugs pediatrics group recommends. I'm sure the pharmaceutical companies are so excited about this that the American Academy of Pediatrics is actually recommending that doctors prescribe weight loss drugs for older children who are obese. Do we have an obesity problem? Yes, we do. You should not be giving your kids Ho-Hos and Twinkies and potato chips every single day. They should be eating, just nutritious food. And every once in a while, just keep it normal. I have potato chips in the house, but it's not like the daily meal, right? And our kids need to get outside. They need to work out. They need to feel okay about themselves. But we're living in an age of such hypocrisy and weirdness and irony, right? Well, the American Academy of Pediatrics is saying this. I go to the mall and I'm walking through past Victoria's Secret or whatever store. And now they have the real oversized clothing, right? Like advertisements, women in lingerie that weigh 300 pounds and you're beautiful no matter what. And I think people are beautiful no matter what. Do we have a problem with obesity? Yes, we do. Is it dangerous for your health and for your life? Yes, it is. And as an adult, you can make adult decisions as to whether you want to have surgery to reduce weight, as to whether or not you want to take medication to lose weight. And in some cases, I'm sure doctors would recommend for children that are very obese, remedies. But this is the hypocrisy of our time. We want to try to And not just even the hypocrisy, but we're also so gratifying. We want to be gratified right away. If we want to lose weight, we want to take a pill to lose weight right away. Now, do some people have genetic inclination to being overweight? Yes, I believe that's true. And I believe it's difficult for some people to lose weight. And as you get older, it becomes harder. Believe me, I know it's harder. But you got to get up in the morning. You got to go for a walk. You got to cut back on all the things that you love. Like me, I do. I love eclairs. I love cake. I love, ice cream. Of course, we all love those beautiful, delicious, sweet desserts. At least I do. But I don't overeat them, right? I try to maintain a healthy balance. I need more exercise though. That I do. I need more exercise in my life just because I work so much. I'm always traveling. Sometimes I'm so tired, I don't fit it in. But I'm reading this story and I want you to hear this. They say that early intervention is needed to treat a condition that affects more than 14.4 million children in the U.S. That's obesity in the U.S. The pediatrics group advised for the first time that children 12 and older who are obese should be offered medications for weight loss, along with lifestyle and health behavior treatments. Look, I think we need to offer our children, less snacking and more outside playing. We've put our kids in front of television sets and game consoles, and they live, sitting on the couch. That's what's happened. We have processed food and all that other stuff, but we could still eat normal. I mean, I don't think we had this problem in the 70s. In the 60s and the 50s, of course, there were always children that could be overweight. But kids were outside playing. It's like we're terrified to let our children out anymore. We're keeping them in a room. We're letting the television babysit them. I'm really concerned that we are over-medicating our kids. And now, of course, wow, what do you think is going to happen with the pharmaceutical industry? This is going to be a huge boom for them. We need to exercise more. we need to spend time together as a family. And I work a lot, but I really, really do make a point of spending time with my family, with my children. When I'm home, I am home. I'm doing this podcast from home, and I'm grateful to God that I have that opportunity, but I know what it's like to be away from the kids. And I know that a lot of parents work 2 jobs and it's tough, but we have to start putting our kids first. And I'm not saying that certain children don't need to have help, that certain kids are so obese that yes, putting them maybe on medication might be the thing that the doctor recommends. What I'm saying is that once again, we're starting to hear the rumblings, just like we did when every kid was supposed to be on Ritalin. The rumblings that this is going to be a quick fix. Obesity is not a quick fix, folks. Giving kids medication for obesity will not be a quick fix. It's about lifestyle. It's about our culture. It's about who we are as a people, who we are as a nation. And it's about protecting our children and our families. As much as we protect our kids from the horrors of the outside world or the bad guys that might be out there looking, trying to give them drugs or take them away from us, we should be protecting our children and their futures from obesity. We should be thinking about what we're giving our children. And it shouldn't be like, oh, they're obese by the age of 12 and we can just give them drugs to help them out. I don't think that's the answer. I don't know. I want to hear what you think. I want to know what you think. I think American children deserve more than this, and they deserve more from us as their parents. Thank you so much for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. I'm so grateful that you joined me today. I'm sure Joe Biden did not join me today, but if he did, he would hear my monologue. Folks, we have got to do something about this nation. We have to put people in office that are worth being in office, that work for us. We don't work for them. Subscribe to me on YouTube, folks. Subscribe on YouTube, because those of you that are just listening to this, you can actually see our interviews on YouTube. Go to YouTube and subscribe to the Sara Carter Show, and follow me on Twitter at Sara Carter DC, on Instagram at SCarterDC, and on Truth at Sara Carter Official. God bless you. God bless our great nation, and God bless the great state of Texas.